This week's Dark Side of the Ring focused on the story of the Scream Queen, Daffney. Coming into this episode, it was easily going to be the toughest to get through, as Daphne's life and pro wrestling career is one of the saddest ever. Out of all the episodes in season 6, this was the darkest and the most depressing one to watch. It talks about bipolar disorder, talks about suicide. It was a tough one to get through. I had to take multiple breaks watching this. It took me a while to get this recording done, and I wanted to make sure I took my time with it and did right with Daffney. So here we go. If you don't know, Daffney was a part of the professional wrestling business since 2000. She joined WCW at the time during the dying days. Daffney, she was one of the first to really do the goth type of gimmick that you would see a Rhea Ripley doing, Alexa Bliss when she turned into the Fiend, her version of the Fiend character that had a goth vibe. Daphne was the first one to really embrace it and to start it. And in WCW, she was originally going to have a 1-month run with the company, but she was so impressive and such a natural in the business that she wanted to be a part of it so badly. WCW gave her a full-time contract, and she was one of the great bright spots of that company. I loved her, David Flair, and Crowbar as a faction. I just don't know why, but it worked so well. Crowbar was interviewed for this. David Flair wasn't. But Daphne was great. But unfortunately, WCW folds in 2001. Vince McMahon, he buys the company. He picks the bones. Daphne never got a permanent contract with the company. She was mainly signed to a developmental deal. But it was only a 9-month run. And it was at that time where she gets diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And it was a really rough time for her. I mean, even she said WCW folding was one of the worst moments of her life. And she herself claims that she was never the same after that. To me, there's 2 moments that you could say, but that was one of them. And at the time, she was taking antidepressants. She was going through a nasty divorce as well. She was once married to Rich Ward, who was one of the musicians of the band Fozzy. I think that was the divorce that she had, and it was just bad. It was a bad time for her with her bipolar disorder. Her mental state was just getting worse. There was one point where for 3 months, she could not even sleep for more than an hour at a time, which is just terrifying to think about. And her constant mood swings were just too much for her family to ignore, and they wanted to make sure that she was taken care of, that she was getting the help, and she was even in a depressive mania stage because she didn't want to take her medication because she was still in the business, and the medication would result in her gaining weight. That would be an issue that would happen later on in her life. We'll get to that when we do. But they loved her. They did everything she could, but Daphne hated that she put her family through that, especially when her symptoms were so bad, she had to be hospitalized. And like her bipolar disorder affected her personal life more than her career. Her boyfriend at the time, Caleb Connolly, if that name sounds familiar, he was with TNA for multiple years. She was in a relationship with Daphne for 4 of those years. He loved her, but because of the bipolar disorder, the mood swings, it wasn't a good relationship. She lost her temper many times. He was actually 20 years old at the time when they both started a relationship, but he just couldn't, make the relationship work. And he admitted he was a dumb kid that was way over his head for thinking it would work. Her personal life was a mess, but her professional career was actually thriving. Even though her time in WWE didn't work out, she did get a contract with TNA. And honestly, it was a much better spot for her to go was for TNA than WWE, because Vince has a specific choice when it comes to wrestlers in WWE, especially for the blondes. He was heavily into the blondes. And in TNA, you could actually wrestle. They were like one of the first companies at the time to allow like real professional wrestling, women's wrestling. And I gotta say, Daphne was fun there too. She debuted as the Governor, but she impressed TNA so much, they just allowed her to become the goth girl Daphne. It was a really, really cool thing for her. Unfortunately for Daffney, her TNA run did not go so well. And listen, look, you cannot mention Daffney's run at TNA without mentioning the injuries she suffered through, especially the one she had suffered through at the Bound for Glory 2009 pay-per-view. This was when the Monster Ballroom or the Monster Ball match between Abyss and Mick Foley happened. It was Mick Foley actually that requested to work with her more. She liked what she was doing, and she thought he and her as a faction would have been great. And them pairing together resulted in her involvement in this match. And there was a spot on here where she got chokeslammed by Abyss from the top of the turnbuckle outside of the ring into a barbed wire table. And that spot was brutal to watch looking back. Like you could tell the back of her head hit the floor. Her arm hit a bit of the barricade. She suffered a broken arm and a concussion. And it was this match. She never was the same. She never was after having those injuries. It was brutal, man. And with her concussion issues, it had an effect on her bipolar disorder. And when she got taken to the hospital, her doctor told her, don't wrestle anymore. Not only with the concussions, not only with your bipolar disorder, but she decided to go back. And even after she had that injury there, not a few months later, she was back in the ring. Like, in no shape or form was she healthy, but they allowed her back in. And according to Crowbar, the mentality that the wrestlers had was there was no room to be injured. You have to wrestle hurt because you're always replaceable and there's younger talent that's available to replace you. What a business. What a business. So, I hate to say this, but TNA does not come off well in this episode because you think, with Daffney just getting injured, you would put her in the ring with someone dependable, right? Wrong. They decided to put her in with a rookie named Rosie Lodalove. She used to wrestle as Sage Beckett in NXT and in the Mae Young Classic. That's what everyone would know her more as. But in TNA, she was Rosie Lodalove, and she was overweight and so green in the ring that she was reckless. There was a terrible powerbomb spot where she poorly hit the move, and that resulted in Daffney's concussion. And she did the earthquake splash, and she landed on Daffney's sternum. It was tough to watch. I mean, Nia Jax would be proud with how reckless Rosie Lodalove was in the ring. Even though Nia Jax, she's like once in a while she has a good match, but she's another one that's reckless. By the way, this wasn't mentioned. That match she had with Daffney in TNA was Rosie Lodalove's tryout match, and they still hired her anyway. Not 3 months later, she got fired for injuring somebody. I wonder why. So, in the aftermath, this also wasn't mentioned, but this is a story I can't believe they didn't cover. Bully Ray, who, if you guys know, is Bubba Ray Dudley, he was not happy that they fired Rosie Lodalove and blamed Daffney for the match going bad, especially because Rosie Lodalove was in his wrestling academy. I think it was the Team 3D Wrestling Academy, if I remember correctly. She was a trainee. Bully basically politicked, basically saying Daffney was the problem, gave her the cold shoulder, constantly yelled at her for making Rosie look bad, and blamed her for losing Lodalove's job. Unbelievable. Bully Ray's another piece of work. Like, that man, like, some of the stuff he says is absolutely ridiculous. And he really does not come off well in this episode. And to make things even worse for TNA, they didn't even pay Daffney's medical bills. She got hurt in your ring. She got hurt in your watch. And you don't pay her medical bills? So eventually she sues, basically using that wrestlers are not independent contractors and that they need to pay her for her medical bills. And eventually both settled. And you want to know what the settlement results was? 1,000 of her action figures. Unbelievable. Now, nowadays, TNA has a more stricter concussion protocol. They're much more organized for when it comes to wrestlers that are injured in the ring. And because of Daffney, that was a big change that happened there. And I'm glad TNA changed for the better, but they failed this woman. Daffney was failed by TNA. So Daffney had, when she left TNA and she decided to retire in 2011 because of her issues with her bipolar, she had too much brain damage, too much injuries that it's unsafe for her to wrestle. She did try out as a referee. I think she was a special guest referee in an independent show, but she also had a bad case of vertigo, and that didn't go anywhere. And once wrestling was over, she had a tough time adapting to it in the aftermath. I mean, she really did. And her life just kept going through a downward spiral. Her mental health issues got worse. She had a very bad medicating issue. She would mix the drugs with alcohol. Didn't help that she got into a bad car accident. And this wasn't mentioned, but she did have a bad car accident. Details I'm going to go through with you. She actually hydroplaned her car. In the Magnum TA episode, they explain more of hydroplaning, where she was going too fast in bad conditions that the car hydroplaned. And the car flipped over multiple times. And as a result, when she's in the water, she was in 3 feet of water with her in the car. I don't even know how. Like, someone was looking after her that day because she was lucky to be alive. And going back to her downward spiral, she also had a DUI. And in that case, she was forced to go to rehab. Like every single person who has a DUI should. Every single one of them should go to rehab. Every single one. Either go to rehab or go to jail. Now, before she went to rehab, she did have thoughts of suicide before she went. She called her friend to basically convince her to not go through with it. And as a result of going through rehab, she was on a much better spot. She went back onto the medication, the bipolar disorder, and it resulted in her gaining weight. Remember, she didn't want to take the medicine because it would affect her body. And now that she's on the medication, she got definitely a little more heavier. There were so many people on social media making fun of her, like, oh, she gained so much weight. The people are rude on social media. And like, some of these people really need a life. And then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and her mental state just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And with the isolation hitting, she felt like she had nobody. And then came the live stream. This happened September 1st, 2021. Daffney went live on Instagram. She was basically reading her suicide note. And she actually had a gun in her hand throughout the entire interview. She was begging everyone that no matter what happens to her, my brain goes to Boston. And what we found out in this episode, she actually stole a gun from her roommate. Or her roommate had a gun somewhere. She found it, and she used it, unfortunately. During that live stream, her brother noticed, and not 10 seconds in, he grabbed his father and mother, and they rushed all the way down to Atlanta, where she was staying at, to convince her to not do it. And while on the live stream, her friend Lexi, who was also interviewed in this, she saw missed phone calls, missed text messages about what's going on with Daffney. And during the live stream, Daffney was like, she's so sorry that she's going to break the promise that she made. It's brutal. Just brutal. Many people were trying to call her during the live stream. Even Mick Foley on social media was trying to get in touch with her. She would not answer the phone. And then abruptly, the live stream just ends. Her brother, her mother, her father, they were trying to get into the door. The authorities came in. Unfortunately, it was just too late. Daffney passed away. She committed suicide via a gunshot wound to the chest. Just awful. Just awful. Remember when I said during the live stream she wanted her brain to go to Boston? That's because in Boston, that's where the Concussion Legacy Foundation is. That's where they do the research for CTE. This wasn't mentioned. Chris Nowinski was the CEO of that foundation. They looked at the brains of Chris Benoit, Aaron Hernandez. He also had his brain observed there. And according to her lab results, she did test for CTE. They don't know how bad her CTE was, but she did have CTE. And the reason why she wanted to do it was she wanted to become the first female wrestler to participate in the study. And she wanted to have others learn more about the business and not to do the dumb stuff she did and what the wrestling business could do to anyone's body. And the thing about Daffney was she was a loving person. Like everyone that was spoken to with her, she cared more for others and she wanted to do more for her community. She was a part of charities. They mentioned the story of Vicky Lyons, who at the time she was run over by a car in a parking lot. And she wanted to be a pro wrestler but couldn't because of her injuries. Daffney, from her good heart, decided to train her. And they had a match at an independent show where she took the pinfall to make her dream come true, which is just heartwarming. But Daffney, it's so sad what happened with her, and it's a sad watch. And knowing her story, it's just tough to finish this to the end. Everyone loved her. Everyone adored her. Her father and brother, who were the MVPs of this documentary, it was tough seeing them talk about Daffney and knowing that she's no longer here. And she was ahead of her time, like I said, with the goth gimmick. She really was, but she was a tortured soul who did well for others that she loved. I really do feel for her family and her friends, and my thoughts go out to them. But to me, the most depressing takeaway of this episode, Daffney was so well liked by everyone. The one person who did not like her was herself. And that's depressing and devastating. Rest in peace, Daffney. My thoughts and prayers go out to everyone. And I believe she also has a daughter. She was contacted to be a part of the documentary, but I think on social media she declined. I don't blame her at all. This is tough stuff to talk about. So I beg of you, if anyone is dealing with mental health issues or thoughts of suicide, get help. There's someone there to help you. There are plenty of people willing to help you out. And I'm going to give you something to contact. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people who have suicidal thoughts or mental health issues. Call 988 via online at 988lifeline.org. And if you're having issues at all, please reach out to someone. There is always someone to help you out. I don't care if it's a neighbor. I don't care if it's someone randomly. I don't care if it's your friend. There is someone here to help you. That concludes my episode of the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Daffney. I hope you enjoyed. Next week's episode is going to focus on Mark Kaponsi, aka Muhammad Hassan, one of the greatest what-ifs in WWE history. He had a great gimmick, had a lot of heel heat, but it was just bad timing. And that will be the season finale. And I'll be back next week. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. The Ringside Rant crew will be live on Thursdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. We're live during Monday Night Raw. Whenever you have the time, you could always check us out and other Stadium Rant content. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you didn't like this video, we got 2 words for you. Acknowledge us.